I took a terrible risk a while ago and decided to take the easy way out on this Troy-built mower, and it did not turn out the way I wanted it to. So did I waste my time taking a shortcut on this mower? Now, I don't think so, but there will be those that say I should have done it the right way. And if you are one of those who said that, well then you're about to see me do that very thing. Just don't be surprised by how much work doing it the right way is gonna take. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Troy-built mower. And the problem is that the engine runs, but it's surging, meaning it won't hold a constant speed. But on top of that, it's really tough to start and there's a terrible oil leak as well. Now luckily, we already know this engine starts and runs and it even sounds good, but make sure yours does as well. Otherwise, trying to invest time and money into it without knowing is going to be very risky. But before we start this project, we better record all the information we can from the stickers just in case we need to order parts for it. Now the shortcut we took last time was to try and clear the carb without taking it off the engine. And if it had worked, we would have saved ourselves a massive amount of time. However, we do have a problem with the automatic choke system. So we were going to have to take it off anyway and look at it and make sure there was nothing wrong with it. It's also very obvious there's an oil leak, but there's still enough in it for a test start. We'll also be able to show the problem with the choke, not to mention the surging I was talking about as well. I don't know if you noticed it, but I had a tough time pulling on the rope because the entire mower wanted to move with it. More than likely, that's because the valves are out of tolerance and will need an adjustment, but we'll take the problems one at a time until we get to that point. But before we dive into this project, I would like to give it a good cleaning, and the main reason why is because I want to make sure the cooling fins are clear to do their job. Of course, to get to the fins, we'll need to take off the recoil and the plastic cover. The good news is that there's not a lot of debris covering the fins, but there is quite a bit of dirt that needs to be removed as well. With the cover gone, it'll also give us the access we need to take off the valve cover. And because I didn't want to ruin this air filter by getting it wet, I'll just take it out for right now. Also, these plastic covers have a tendency to collect debris, so we're going to take it off, but it is up to you. With the cover gone, we can now see the transmission and we can see how it works. So on this type, the drive belt should have decent tension on it and the power is sent to the wheels only after the lever has been activated. And as you can tell, this one seems to be working quite well, but if yours is not, then I would check to see if the gears are turning at the wheels. And if they're not turning, then there might be a problem with the wheels or the transmission, which is not going to be cheap to fix. Of course, you don't need to clean your mower and you're free to work on it covered in dirt and oil, but I do prefer to work on them without worrying about getting dirt someplace where it shouldn't be. But I am saying that while spraying down the mower with gallons of water, but as long as you're careful, you shouldn't have to worry about getting water inside the engine. Now that the fins on the flywheel and the engine are clean of any dirt, we can move on to cleaning the transmission and the wheels. I know no one's going to see this part, but it only takes a few minutes to clean it off, so it's not a real issue. But what customers will see are the wheels, the mowing deck, and of course the engine, so that's what we want to make look the best we can. Just make sure you use the best cleaner you can afford because if it's not very good, you'll spend all your time cleaning and not fixing. Now since we already have a personal mower, we don't need another one. The ultimate goal for this one is to be sold off, hopefully making a decent profit as well. After you finish rinsing it off, make sure the mower has plenty of time to dry off, but you are welcome to work on it wet if you want to. Now the first problem we want to address is that oil leak, and it looks like it's coming from the governor shaft. But to get room to work on it, I like to tip the mower up in the air and remove the fuel tank. Now you can leave it in place if you want to, but don't be upset when you realize the fuel line's in your way. Now for those that are asking, there is no seal in this area to begin with, which is how it's supposed to be from the factory. But for some reason, on very few of these engines, they'll start leaking, and if it does, you can order a seal for it. Now that this area is very clean, we don't have to worry about getting dirt in the way. However, there is some dirt still hiding behind the arm that we need to clear out before installing the seal. But before taking the arm off, make sure to note how the arm and shaft are positioned, that way you can put them back on the same way. Now you can put a mark on the shaft if you're able to, and a corresponding mark on the arm, but I'll leave it up to you how you choose to do it. So here's the shaft, and to be able to install our shield, we'll need to remove the retaining clip, which is there to keep the shaft from falling into the engine case. But after taking that clip off, you need to be very careful not to push the shaft into the engine. This is also when we need to clean out all that dirt that's hiding in the area where we need to install the seal. Now the seal has a flat side and an open side, and we want to install the flat side facing away from the engine. But don't even consider installing the seal until you either use compressed air or brake cleaner to blow out all that dirt. I don't know if you saw all that stuff that came out of that pocket, but all that would have been in the way of the seal. I'll then spray a lubricant on the shaft, but I don't think you need to, however I'm choosing to. After that, we'll then carefully work the seal towards the engine, making sure to keep a hold of the shaft to keep it from falling inside the engine. This would have been so much easier if I had multiple locking long nose pliers, but I'll make do with what we've got. And for the final part, we'll just carefully push the seal into the opening, but there is more than one way to do this. Just don't forget to install that retaining clip, otherwise when you install the arm, it could potentially push the shaft back into the engine. And if that should happen, you'll be in a world of pain, and I'd rather not explain what you have to do to try and fix it. Now once the clip is back on, you don't have to worry so much about it, and you just have to install the arm back onto the shaft. So do you have to install the seal if your shaft is leaking a small amount of oil? Nope, not at all. However, it'll force you to check the oil every time you use your machine, otherwise you run the risk of breaking the engine, so I'll let you choose which one you want to do. Now the seal is not very expensive, however, I kind of wish it was about half the price, only because I'm a real cheapskate. Now that we've taken care of that slow oil leak, it's time to fix the surging from the engine that's caused by that carb. But if you want to do yourself a huge favor, I'd recommend just replacing the carb instead of servicing it. But I do have to warn you, the way the carb and the airbox are installed on some Honda engines can be extremely difficult to handle. So be ready to deal with several gaskets and spacers while trying to install the carb back onto the engine. Now to be frank, I really should carry several spare carbs on the shelf, that way I can swap them on and deal with the old carbs later on. Of course, some would say they'd rather keep using a high-quality OEM carb versus a cheap aftermarket one, which I can understand. But out of convenience and time, I think doing it the way I just explained makes good sense. Next, we'll take out the main fuel jet and give it a second cleaning despite having done it in our last video. The reason why we're doing it again is to make sure it's as clean as can be, just in case we missed something the first time. You'll then want to get a piece of wire that'll pass through the opening and work that wire every which way to take out any remaining buildup from the jet. Now some are going to tell you to open the jet just a bit bigger to allow more fuel through, but I would highly recommend not doing that. That's because if you make it too big, you run the risk of having too much fuel enter the engine, which will cause a different type of problem. After running the wire through it, we'll then follow that up with a bit of carb cleaner. We'll then do the same thing for the emulsion tube, but there is a faster way of cleaning it. You can try to push your wire through every opening, or you can just spray carb cleaner through it, which is quite effective. Now the most likely reason for the surging would be a clogged pilot jet, which on this carb is hiding under this bolt on top of the carb. And I find the best way to clean it is to spray carb cleaner or compressed air through the right side opening in the inlet for the carb. And once you see that it's clear, we'll then replace that bolt on top of the carb and then start to put the carb back together again. Cleaning the carb is not tough, but if you're not sure about what to do, then a new carb would be your best bet. I would like to continue using a high quality carb as well, but if I service it and it's still not working like it should be, I would have no problems replacing it. But before we install the carb, we need to figure out why the automatic choke system is working so badly. But just to let you know, most times all these systems need is a bit of cleaning and maybe some lubrication, and they'll work like new again. And after some brake cleaner and some lubrication, we'll test the choke again and see what it does. And luckily this time it's now working smoothly without hanging up like it was before. Now you might be tempted to modify the return spring for the choke, but I would highly recommend not doing that. And that's because if you touch the spring, you might need to modify the other parts of the system that you may not be able to modify. I would just clean it the best you can and lubricate the moving parts and hope that it's enough to get it working again. Also, be careful how you install the carb on the engine. The lever for the choke has to be on the correct side of the carb or it won't work. And to make sure it works, I'd recommend that you test the choke once the carb has been installed. Otherwise, if it doesn't work, you can fix it right then without wasting time working on something else. Now installing the carb can be a huge pain if you've never done one like this before. So just take your time and make sure that everything lines up before you try tightening the bolts. Also, don't forget to connect the emissions hose on the back of the air filter base, otherwise unfiltered air will get into the engine. Now that the carb has been installed, we'll test the choke system, and sure enough, it looks like it's working as it should be, which is great news. However, don't be surprised if it doesn't work, and you'll have to take it apart to find out why. And the very last problem we're going to tackle is the reason why this rope is tough to pull, and that is checking the valve clearances. However, there is a huge problem that comes along with this inspection, and that is just getting to the valves, and that's because the valve cover is sealed to the engine. That means we'll have to pry the cover away from the engine, but if you do, make sure to do it near the top of the cover. And once you do get the valve cover away from the engine, make sure to bend that corner back to where it needs to be. Otherwise, you might end up with an oil leak from that corner, which is something you do not want to deal with. Next, we're going to rotate the engine until one of the arms is all the way down, which means the other one will be up and loose, and this is the one we're going to check first. So I like to set my clearances to 5/1000ths of an inch, however, you're free to set yours to a different value. But after sliding our feeler gauge into the clearance, it turns out to be much bigger than the feeler gauge, which is the reason why the rope is tough to pull. That means we need to close up that clearance, and to do that, we'll loosen the jam nut and then turn that square head bolt until the feeler gauge almost gets stuck. Now because it was so out of spec, I had to turn it a couple times before the adjuster came close to the top of the valve. But once you think you've got it to where it needs to be, hold that square bolt while tightening the jam nut to lock in the setting. But of course, we'll need to do the same thing for the other arm, however, we need to rotate the engine again so that the other arm will be the loose one. We'll then use our 5/1000ths feeler gauge to find out how it fits in this clearance, but this time it's not as bad as the last one. However, it's still out of tolerance, so we'll do the same thing on this one and close up the clearance by a tiny bit. Here's a word of caution, these settings are very important to how the engine starts and runs, and if you mess this part up, you're going to have a tough time with the engine. Now, if you're okay with how difficult it is to pull on the rope, then just live with the problem. However, it might continue to get worse until one day it won't start. So when installing the valve cover, I'm not going to use a sealer, and instead, I'm going to use a gasket made from cork. The reason why is time. If I were to use a sealer, I'd have to give it more than 24 hours to set up before using the engine. I guess I could get a fast setting sealer, but I like using the kind I have and I've had good luck with it, so I don't have plans on switching. Now that all the major problems have been addressed, it's time to put the mower back together and back on the ground for a test start. But I will let you know that sometimes after doing all this major work, you might run into a problem with your test starts, so don't be surprised. Most times, I only work on one major system at a time, and that's to make it easier to diagnose when things don't work out like they should. So it's been running for several minutes and the engine should be good and hot. Let's see how it starts back up. And luckily it started right back up with no problems whatsoever. But make sure you test start your engines when hot, because there's nothing worse than stopping your mower for a quick break only for it not to start back up. But if you have that problem, I guess you'd never turn your engine off until you really need to, but that can be dangerous if you like to bag your grass. So my question is, would you try and fix all the problems at once or fix them one at a time? There's nothing wrong with taking your time, but getting it all done in one go does have its advantages. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.